Yay, welcome everyone to our Wednesday night yin. As always, I'm very excited to be here with all of you. And tonight we're going to do a class that is focusing on the hip. And I'm actually going to be talking about this whole area. And I'm actually going to also show us some visual aspects to this because it's important that we're thinking about not just what's happening in the bone, not just what's happening in the muscle, but really thinking also about what's happening in that fascia and that connective tissue. Remember that when we see the muscle, it's got that kind of like pinkish quality and it's got lots of blood flow. And so it will open very quickly and it has that really quick recoil. But when we see, even like in the book, you're going to notice there are some areas that are pink and then it moves into some that are white. That's where we're going into the fascia and the connective tissues, the denser tissues, and these don't get that same amount of blood flow. So part of what we're going to also be noting, if we're having stress or sensation in an area, then it helps us to start to understand what actually might be happening, whether it's bone, whether it's connective tissue, muscle, maybe it's a combination. Okay, so the first thing I want to just show you is a picture of the pelvis itself, just the bones. So we're going to start just by checking this out. And what I want us to observe is that it's actually a pretty movable area because you've got the two sides of the hip, right? The pelvis and then the sacrum. And the sacrum are the 5 fused vertebrae at the base of the spine. So the tailbone is the very bottom. And there actually is some mobility right in here. And then you've got where you've got your femur and you have the entry to the hip. So you've got where the leg bone is actually connecting here. So we start to see the areas that have to have mobility, right? That can't be locked. But then we start to realize that there's of course going to be muscle and connective tissue that starts to connect things throughout. So now I want you to check this out. And this is actually, I think, one of the most important things that we can see. So look at how there are muscles like what actually we think, where does the back become the obliques, which we think of as being like those side core group muscles, but see how the oblique is wrapping back here? And over here, we can see it where there's that space still, right? So thinking about, remember how I mentioned the muscles, the pink part, but the white stuff represents more of the fascia connective tissue. It helps us to start to understand, again, what are we feeling? Where is it happening, right? What could be happening as far as connection points? One final thing I want us to check out. So here, when we're thinking about the hip today, we're going to be looking at the front hip, but also notice where the glute, right, has a whole bunch of fascia happening here. And the glute actually also goes quite a bit here onto this IT band. So again, as we're practicing tonight, I'm just going to have us be really, really thinking about these different areas. And when we're feeling, these different areas, it's going to help us to navigate more about what's happening in the body. Because also, when we really start to look more at the back area, a lot of things can be happening in the back and they can end up creating issues around the hip. So we're going to end up doing a whole bunch of work that also may be really helpful for the back as well. Okay, let's grab our props. I recommend a pillow or like a blanket just to have some extra support for the knee. Grab a strap or even like a kitchen towel, that will work great. And I'm going to have us start by coming to a comfortable seated space. And we're always checking in at first. I want us to be noticing how do we feel physically, how we're feeling mentally, emotionally, how we've been sleeping, how the digestive realm has been. And so we take a moment to check in because our yin practice can greatly affect all of these different aspects. So we're going to notice details. Just gently observing how we feel. Let's slowly bring the hands to the heart. And in this space, we set our intentions and we dedicate our practice. We remember that All the things that we do, all the things that we say, all the energetic arrows that we shoot, they matter and they have tremendous impact. Just very gently release the hands. Let's open the eyes if they're closed. And let's make our way into child's pose to begin our first shape. Now, something that I want us to note is how, talking about the hip this evening, part of what we note right away in child's pose is that we do not want to feel compression in the front hip here. And so if we have the knees together and we go forward, if there's compression in the hip, it might be better to take the knees wide. So listen to your own body, whole bunch of different choices. Yeah, we'll do 3 minutes in child's pose. So knees can be together or apart. Hands can reach forward or back, whatever feels right for you. And I want you to just find that very first stretch. Remember, we're going to be there for 3 minutes. Good. And right away in the first shape, I want you to notice, where do you feel the most sensation? The body loves us and it will cheat for us. And so remember, the tighter, shorter tissues, that's always what we feel first. Just keep breathing. We might feel it entirely in the low back. Maybe we feel stretch in the top of the foot or the arms. Keep breathing. Keep breathing. We're keeping the face soft. We're observing any changes in the body. Very, very gentle. Release and super slow. Maybe take like cat cow or down dog. Yeah, listen to your own body. Remember, it's normal if we feel like clicking, popping movement. Sometimes yin is like ultra boring. And what our data shows us is that that's the gold here, because without this boredom and this time to create space and daydreaming, we end up with insomnia. And a lot of the issues that we find, they really come from not getting the proper sleep. So part of what we're doing is here caring for the body, but really it creates that domino of health, so that here we process, then we sleep and dream, and that's where the real emotional processing happens. Okay, next I want you to do this. So I want you to come to seated. And now we're going to take the legs just really, really gently wide. So in dragonfly, we're not only seeing what's happening with the bones here, but we're also noting what we feel the most. Maybe we feel all adductor or groin, but maybe as we lean forward, we only feel the back. We're going to do 5 minutes here. And remember, this could be at a 10% stretch, right? You don't have to go deep into it. Even if we can, it could be like just barely going into it. So we're going to do 5 minutes here. Good. Just keep breathing. And so, for example, like in this series that we're going to do this evening, if we keep feeling the back in all these different stretches, even when we could feel it in other places, that's the back communicating to us that those muscles and those tissues could be tighter, maybe shorter. And we're just getting to know which areas might even need more attention. A lot of times when we're first starting out, like the first couple of years of yin, we do a little bit of everything, but keep our eyes open for anything that needs extra attention. Remember, you can round the back, you can tuck the chin. We don't do that in all of our forms of yoga, but you totally can with yin. And just keep the face soft. Keep letting go. Keep breathing, keep releasing. Just keep softening in. We are cleansing the body and the mind. Just keep breathing. Keep breathing. Keep letting go. Excellent. That was 5. Now release, go super, super slow and feel. Excellent. Taking anything that we want in between. The practice of yin can be so challenging. It looks at times like we're doing nothing, but this, in many ways, is considered the most challenging practice. Remember that this comes from our Kung Fu lineage, and this is not only a cognitive behavioral therapy, but it becomes Taoist meditation. And we've known for a really long time that meditation works so well that it can transform the mind, but meditation is hard. Yin creates a bridge. Sitting for 5 minutes can be hard, but that's what you just did. So we're learning along the way all of these techniques for meditation. Very good. Okay, now the first piece that we're going to look at for the front hip is going to be the lunge. And I love this piece, and partly why I've been so in love with this lately is that all that you have to do is shift the weight distribution and notice the most micro change can completely change the pose. So when we do this lunge, I'm going to show you from a couple different angles. If I have my right leg forward, my left knee is down, but this could be very different for all of you. You might want to be kind of like lifting up out of it. Some of you are going to take the hands down, and some of you are going to actually like walk the hands so that they come like inside and the foot is actually out, or even like here. There's so many ways to do this. And I remember once one of my crew back in the day, I noticed that they added a little bit of arm stretch here. I'll show you from this angle too. And sometimes I'll put that in because this is a way to get in the side body. Now, in a little bit, we are going to look at that banana asana, but just in general, you might note how just a micro movement might really get into that whole side area. Okay, so take that right leg forward, planting left knee down. And I want us to find that very first stretch, whatever you're working on. Let's do 3 minutes here. Good. Yeah, just find that very first stretch. Just keep breathing. We're noticing, where do we feel the most sensation? We might be feeling a lot in the hip flexor group. We might be feeling a lot in the quads and those large muscles in the front leg thigh area. Sometimes we're also feeling stretch in that right side. And again, if we were to even just, reach that left arm up or something, then we might get a completely different stretch. Just keep breathing. Yeah. Notice details. Keep breathing. Keep the face soft. Keep breathing, observing changes, details in the body. Okay, awesome. Now release the first side and take it slow and observe. And we note clicking, popping movement. Yeah, feel. Each of us have to begin to get to know our own bones, our own bodies. And what we say in Yin is that the skeleton will ultimately determine the poses that we can and can't do. It also can, in the long run, keep us from injury and stuff like that, because then if we figure out that our bones are not going to be happy with certain shapes, then we might be avoiding them. So we're going to get to know not every pose works. Left and right can be really different. We're going to see it all. Okay, second side. So now we've got left leg forward and I've got this right knee down. Generally, because the body likes to cheat, if we're right-handed, usually this one's tighter, and we're going to note that. Very good. Second side, find that very first stretch and breathing here. Now, as we're breathing here, I'm going to talk about a couple of the reasons that we hold for so long. I know that some of my advanced students have heard this many times, and this might be a refresher. I know some of you who are watching this might be brand new. This to me is one of these cool things where the language that we use is important, because we talk about how when we do the practice, it's like we're melting away stress. Well, imagine this, that the connective tissues that we are working here, the fascia and the connective tissues, they really look like a sponge. So if we imagine a sponge, that's actually very accurate, but it's even more accurate if you were to imagine a sponge that were dipped in butter, because butter has two consistencies. And when we first go into our stretch, when the tissues are the coldest, it's like we've got a sponge that's been dipped in butter and the butter has gone into the cold state. And so it's in that harder, like colder state. And you can imagine how it would be that the sponge wouldn't really twist and move. It wouldn't be very smooth. But if we were to melt the butter, it would be a totally different consistency and mobility within the sponge. When you go into the stretch, about 2.5 minutes in, that's exactly what happens. The gel sol, which is the collagen and the hyaluronic acid, actually has a phase change and goes from a cold butter texture into a warm butter texture. And we might be able to feel it. And for my advanced students, every time you've done yin, you have micro lengthened your connective tissues. And so they're already lengthened, but the gel sol might just be in the cold butter texture, which means that for all of you, 2.5 minutes in, it might go from this to this, because all of a sudden you feel that phase change and the mobility shifts. Yeah, just keep breathing. Remember that we're using the body to heal the body. That's part of what makes Yin so incredible. Very, very good. Let's release now. Yeah, we're going to take it slow. And anything at all that we want in between. All right. Now, everything is connected in the system and in so many different ways beyond what we can imagine. But when we're thinking connective tissue, we have to realize that it's like a threading all throughout the body, which is why you can put like an acupuncture needle in the middle finger, and that will actually affect pericardium because you're actually getting that run like through the connective tissue. So in these different areas, right, we have different ways that we're targeting the body. In this next one, we're going to do banana asana. Part of what I want us to think about is how, if a muscle, for example, like let's think, for example, about some of those back muscles. If one group were tighter or shorter, that could do the sort of like in the pelvis, right? So then part of what we're thinking about is that relationship between the bones, the muscles, right, the connective tissues. There has to be that support, right? There has to be this yang kind of quality that holds everything, together. But we can't have things getting too mobile or too tight. And so we're looking for this space where there is that flow, where we find that really nice in between, where we've got our mobility, but we're not overly flexible and we're not too tight. So now we're going to start to navigate in the low back. This is the one where I really want us to note like what we feel here. And we're now thinking about how the oblique, which we might think of as here, actually has quite a bit of wrap coming here. Okay, I'm going to demo this one standing, but we're going to be doing it on the back. So banana asana is not just a totally sweet name. It's exactly what it sounds like. So on the back, I'm going to be reaching my arms to the right. A lot of us have been doing that variation when we clasp the elbows. I've been doing that one. I like it. And you're also going to be having the legs go over to the right as well. And some of you have been doing that variation where you actually hook the top leg. Now I'm going to show you on the back. Okay, so we come on the back. So for first side banana asana, we start on the back. Remember, we're going to have the arms going up and over to the right. And I even like shift my top body a little bit so you can clasp the elbows. And then you might want to walk the legs a little bit to the right, maybe even take that left leg and hook it. And just notice what we feel on that side body. I'm going to give us 3 minutes there. Okay, first side banana asana. Yay. Okay, find that first stretch and breathe. And if it's comfortable, if it ever feels okay in the body, maybe we close the eyes. And by removing the visual, sometimes that can be helpful for really observing more about what we feel, because then we're not thinking about what it looks like. It's really more about what does it feel like. Just keep breathing. Keep breathing. Keep the face soft. And remember that we're creating space. Very, very good. Now we release. Yeah, super, super slow. And as we go through center, we're observing all that's flowing through the body. And now we're going to shift the legs over to the left. You might hook that right leg on top. And now we shift the arms over to the left. We might clasp the elbows. So second side, banana asana, we'll do the same amount of time. We'll do 3 minutes. So find that second side and breathing there. As we're breathing here, I want us to remember that this is part of what we call the sleep testing section, because when we come to yoga, it's very common that we will notice things like how we sit and how we stand, and all these things that we're doing a lot. If we're crossing one leg over every time we sit, once we start doing yoga and stretching the glutes or something, we might be aware that one side is tighter or stronger or something like that. But when we come to yin, it goes to a completely different level because we're holding for such a long period of time. We really see the details and the differences left and right. Now, when we're sleeping, we might be holding shapes for a long period of time, and we might not be aware of the shapes that we're holding because we're sleeping. But if we come to yin and we notice that in some pieces, the head turns easier to one side, or the hip has more rotation, or one shoulder feels different, then we start to notice the details. If we sleep in a way where the head is turned, or we're always on one shoulder or something, that could actually show up in the practice. So we're getting to know even more about the shapes that we sleep in. Just keep breathing. Keep breathing. We're noticing details. Very, very good. Now release the second side. Yeah, super slow. Go through center. And of course, anything that we want in between. Now, primarily what I'm having us do to get not only into the hip, but we're looking at things around the hip and we're thinking about all of these different movements, how certain things happen in the back when we fold forward, certain things happen when we go back, certain things happen when we twist to the side. But if we are to add like this kind of a twisting movement, right, that could change entirely what we feel. So we're looking at all of these different angles, all these different ways to work. Now, in the next one, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this piece that we've been calling elephant pose. This is a kind of variation of caterpillar, but I've been using this also for the arm work because part of what we're going to look at, and especially in this one, less is really more. I'm only going to give us 1 minute here. I also want us to know if we have history of low blood pressure, if there's any dizziness, you're going to tuck the chin because we are going to be basically in a forward fold. Sometimes we're going to be doing just the leg work, but today I'm going to also add that arm work as well. Okay, so if we're standing, we're going to make it so that we come to standing. And with our feet about hip distance apart, if we were to fold forward, we can take those hands back Maybe press the wrist together, maybe flip the palm. I've been doing that variation with the wrist pressed together, and then let it be your own. Notice how, if we are to, lift up a little bit or go forward or, bend the knees or something, what we feel can really change. And we might intentionally try to feel it more in the arms or try to feel it more in the hamstrings or something. So just notice all of those details. Also, of course, I want you to observe, what do you feel in the back and especially in that low back area? Good, just keep breathing. We're starting to see the connections in the body. Now, as you release the hands. You can tuck the chin if you want to come up, or you can come down almost like into a squat. Yeah, do whatever works for the body, anything that you want in between. We're mixing it in, so we're looking at a whole bunch of different ways to target these areas. Now, what I'm going to have us do next is the piece that's like the second piece for the quads. So we did the lunge, and now we're going to do the half saddle. Sometimes when we practice together, we only do one. And I'm going to have us observe, like maybe we need them both, maybe they just work slightly different. This is one where I want us to note it is normal and good to feel the stretch in the front part of the knee, but we don't want to feel compression on the inside on the meniscus. So we're going to take this slow. We're going to be navigating into that front part of the leg. So I want us to come to seated, and we're going to do half saddle. So with the right leg forward, let's bend the left knee, and we're going to take the left foot back. Take it really slow. This could be intense. Some of us are going to be on the top of the foot. For some bodies, it feels better to kick that foot out. Just make sure it's not stressing the inner knee. And we could start right here. Some of you are going to lean back a little, a lot. Some of you will lean back all the way. Go slow. I want you to find that very, very first stretch. Breathing here, half saddle. Again, remember the tighter, shorter tissues. That's always what we feel first. Just notice the details. Breathing. Remember, we're noticing, what do we feel up in the hip flexor? What do we feel in that quad group and even around the knee? Keep breathing. We're always observing how, each of the pieces show different things. We might be drawn to some pieces more than others. Some pieces we might love and others not so much. And it can change. Just keep breathing. All right, now release. Yeah, go super, super slow. And we feel fresh blood coming in. And remember, this can be intense. So just take it really, really gentle. Feel the sides can show us such different things. For a lot of my athletes, right, my dancers, when we have, injury, scar tissue, it might be that things are different left and right. And as we're practicing yin, part of what we're doing is we're pulling on those dense tissues so that adhesions and scar tissue will eventually break away. And then we get a healthier reknit when everything reknits. So take it gentle. Let's notice if this one's different. Just like when we did the lunge, I said, notice if the the front right hip is tighter. So maybe this one is also more challenging. All right, left leg forward, bend the right knee now, take it slow. So same thing, just test it. Yep, and we're gonna do 3 minutes here. Awesome, yeah, just find that very first stretch. So just now as we came into this pose, my knee just popped, which felt amazing and was glorious. But 10 years ago, if that had happened, I would have been like, "Oh no, something's wrong, right? My knee's gonna fall off." Part of yin is that yin brings us into a whole new awareness of the body. Our whole concept of sensation can change and mobility. And I was gonna tell all of you because I noticed that I've mentioned before about this pose and how this was one of the pieces that really drew me into yin, and how when I'd had a knee injury from dance, this was the piece that after like 47 days, finally, boom, all the scar tissue ripped off. But it took like 47 days. And what's been even more interesting is that now in this past year and a half, because I've been teaching you in a way like this, where I tend to practice with you, I've been doing a lot of yin, even more than those first couple of years. And what I have seen is really cool. It's this peeling of an onion process. So that first round ripped off all the scar tissue on the knee, but down the road, I found all this mobility in the knee and the ankle, which I believe now in my experience came from stress through probably soccer and dance. But we have the yin practice to help repair the body. And all we have to do is remember that when we get injured or when there's stress in the body loves you. So it puts those dense tissues in to basically create a bridge. But it depends on us to know when it's time to do the yin style practice to break away adhesions and scar tissue. Problem is that we don't know to do that. Most animals have that coded into them, but we don't. So we have to remember to balance the yang and the yin practices. And it helps us to not only, stay out of injury in general, but if we do get hurt, we know the proper process of healing and when to eventually start to stretch and pull out that scar tissue. Good. Just keep breathing. Notice all those details. Notice if this side is harder, if it's easier. Excellent. Now release there. Yeah, shake it out. Awesome. Awesome. And yeah, even the stretch on the top of the foot, when we do that one and when we do like child's pose, depending on the bone structure of the foot, we might be feeling a ton of stretch in that top kind of front foot area as well. Wonderful. So we're looking at a whole bunch of different pieces now. Before we close to do more of that back work, I want us to check in and to do one of the pieces for the arm work. And as we start to see, when we're looking at those pictures, part of what we start to see is that everything really is connected. And so we might do some shoulder stretch and find that that actually really helps our hip. And it's weird how things can be connected. It's like you can get an adjustment up here in your neck and it shifts the ankle, right? Everything is connected throughout. With this one, let's grab that strap or towel. We could be seated here. We can also be on the shins or even standing. I'm going to demo this in a moment from the back. I'm going to take the strap in my right arm and I'm going to bend my right elbow, and then I'm going to take that left hand back. I'm going to show you from the back. And this is very different for each person. So it could be like this. This could be a really challenging piece. We might inch the hands a little closer together. Some of you are going to actually have the hands clasping. I want you to find that very first stretch. Let's do 1 minute. Good. This is another one where if it's comfortable, we might want to close the eyes. Yeah, we can lift the chin, let it be your own. And we're going to notice in detail what we feel where, because especially in the arms, this is where we often see major differences left and right. Most of us are not ambidextrous. My lefties tend to be more ambidextrous, but in general, we are right arm dominant, and the way that we use the arms is completely different. So the first step to the change is we have awareness, observation. Really good. Let's exhale there. Yep. Let's see if this second side is different, which it generally is. And maybe we feel a lot in both arms, but where we feel it could be quite different. Okay, let's lift that left arm and then bending the elbow. Now we're reaching our right arm back. Same thing, maybe you're using towel, strap, you might connect the hands. Now let's just do a minute here, take it slow. Okay, exhale, and we release, good. Now let's take the wrist above the elbow. We're just gonna do like 30 seconds here to stretch in the bicep and pec major, minor. So just take a gentle stretch here. And remember, we're looking for the areas that hold tension. And we're going to be watching as we practice yin, we're going to observe because things can be shifting. Okay, let's exhale and release there. Very good. And we're going to close with our twist. Now, I'm going to demo the Garuda variation on the back for my advanced students. If you've been doing deer, if you love deer, that might be your choice instead. So I want you to pick. Now, the reason I'm going to check into the Garuda style one on the back is that once we add that little leg wrap, that can bring us deeper in the low back, but it's also going to show us some things about maybe possible compression in the hip. So this will also be a test for us to see about what's happening side to side in the hip. So if you're doing this piece with me, you're going to come on the back, and we're going to start with both those knees in. So squeeze both the knees in. Now, for the Garuda style one, I'm going to take my left leg and I'm going to wrap it on top of the right leg, maybe once, maybe twice. And then I'm going to drop the legs over to the right. So I've got my left leg on top and I'm going to drop it over. Yep. Notice we might get like clicking, popping movement. You could have your arms like out in that T shape. Yep. I'm going to give us 3 minutes on that first side. Just find that very, very first stretch. Noticing what we feel, of course, in the low back. But notice because there is this twisting quality, notice also what we feel in the rib cage area, in that thoracic area. Even the way that we turn the head can really shift what we feel. Just go slow. Keep breathing. Notice details. Very, very good. Now we release. Yeah, take it super, super slow. We can unwind. Notice if we have clicking, popping movement. Coming to the second side, and if you're following me, now we're going to be wrapping this right leg maybe once, maybe twice over the left, and then dropping the legs over to the left. So right leg on top. Yeah, and just find that very, very first stretch. We'll do the same thing. We'll do 3 minutes here. And we're not expecting that the sides will be the same. As we come to this piece, I want us to also remember that this is one of the sleep testing section pieces also. Maybe when we sleep, the legs or leg fall to one side. Maybe we turn the head to one side. All of these things can become shapes that we're doing when we're sleeping and we don't know it. So notice details, scan the body, notice the low back. Gently notice where the mind goes. Breathe. Very, very good. Now release super slow, and we feel all of the chi that flows through. We could do peace fingers to the big toe or hands outside the feet. We can rock, massage, yeah, anything at all that we want or need. And when we're ready, we're going to come to Shavasana. Yep. As you come to Shavasana, get comfortable, get warm. And tonight I'm going to read you the Self as Witness, which is a section that many of you have heard me read before. But I read this because every time I read it, it changes lives. It takes this very dense Buddhist concept and helps us to understand. For example, the great Pema Chodron has this quote, and I guarantee that this quote that I tell you now, it will sound different and it will probably make more sense in a moment. So the Pema quote is, "You are the sky, everything else is just the weather." As you come to Shavasana, I'm going to bring you the words of Kamini Desai, who is a great Indian yoga teacher from the family who started Kripalu Yoga. And she has a PhD in neuropsychology. She's very, very important in our intersections between yoga and neuropsychology. As we come to Shavasana, we get comfortable and we hear the self as witness. Imagine that you are sitting on top of a hill, surrounded by golden grassed hills on all sides. Down below, you see a road. The road is empty. Far off in the distance to the right of your vision, you see a car come into your vision, into the center of your vision, and then off into the horizon. The car disappears from view. Can you see that if you are the one seeing the car, it cannot be you? You were there before the car. You were there while the car was there, and you were there after the car was gone. You were the one watching the car come and go. This is the nature of the eternal self. It is always there. It is there before things come, while things are there, and after they are gone. The eternal self is you, the one who is seeing things come and go. That is why it is called the witness. Let's develop this idea further. Imagine yourself at the age of 7, your body size, your personality, how you were, what you looked like. But now fast forward to a teenager, how you were then, what your personality was like. And now fast forward to the present time. Notice your current body, maybe the wrinkles on your face, your personality. Notice that sometimes you look in the mirror and see your body change. Maybe you even ask yourself, is that me? We said, if you can see the car, it can't be you. What about the body? Can you see the body? Can you see it change? Are you there before the body changes, while it is changing, after it has changed? Consider that if you can see the body change, it can't be you. You are the one watching the body change. In fact, you are watching the body change in the same way you watch other bodies change. And some days the body is seen with bags under the eyes, other days not. Some days the body is observed with more weight or less weight. Over time, we see the body accumulate more wrinkles and more gray hair. There has to be an identifier observing these changes. That means the body cannot be the totality of you. There has to be something greater than the body that is aware of it. We could call it consciousness. That consciousness is a consistent, eternal thread that watches and observes all things in flux. Consciousness itself is unchanging, but serves as the background behind every changing experience. Remember, everything that comes goes. Everything seen, heard, tasted, smelled, felt, or thought lives for a time, then dies. Yet aren't you there before all these things arrive? While they are there, when they leave, awareness identifies the presence and absence of everything. You are the one who sees it all come and go because you are there to identify it. You are the one identifying when an emotion is not present, when it is present, and when it is gone. You can say, I wasn't sad, then I was sad, and now I'm not sad anymore. Just like the witness watching the car, you are there to identify changing states. If you are the one identifying various gross and subtle objects coming and going, you have to be the unchanging constant within which these objects are coming and going. They cannot be you. You are not the one who is sad. You are the one who is there before, during, and after sadness comes and goes. See the difference? This small change in perspective has enormous significance, as you will see. Now I want you to hear that Pima quote again, and perhaps now it will sound very different. You are the sky. Everything else is just the weather. Very, very slowly, we begin to ground back into ourselves. We'll gently move the fingers, gently move the toes. We can slowly move the head and the neck, tiny micro movements. When we're ready, we can gently roll to one side. And we'll press ourselves very, very gently back up. We'll all make our way to some comfortable seated space. And as we return, we're noticing how we feel now. I also want us to notice how we sleep and how we feel in the next couple of days. Now let's bring the hands to the heart. Let us remember our intentions. We remember our dedications. We remember all of the reasons that we practice yoga. It is a great honor and it is a great privilege to be together with this community and to practice. Thank you all so much. Be sure to drink lots and lots of water. And the piece that I read tonight is, again, Kamini Desai's work, and I'm going to show you the cover so that we can see. Let me know if we need the recording. Awesome. And thank you all so much for being here. For the people that are here live, feel free to stay and check in. And thank you all that are watching the recorded version. Thank you all so much. See you soon.